Welcome to SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm your host, Susie St. Angelo, and thank you for being here. Today, my episode is called Finding Joy Through a Dog's Love. And my guest is Jennifer Huston Schaeffer, an editor and author of a memoir called Mama's Boy, How My Doggie's Soulmate's Love Rescued Me. This podcast is for you if you know you want to change something. Maybe it's your career, your health, or something else. And you might be wondering if this is the right age or right stage in life to make that change. And you don't know where to start. Or maybe you're one of those people caught in analysis paralysis. I see you and I understand and I was you. But just stay tuned. You'll get a good tip or two, and maybe that's just what you need to get started in making those changes. Just a reminder on how you can find this podcast. You can find it on Spotify, YouTube, iHeart, Amazon, and Apple platforms. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get into today's episode and meet my guest, Jennifer Huston Schaeffer. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hi, Susie. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for being on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm excited to talk to you and get to know you better. And it was nice meeting you at a local book author event last year. And I'm just excited to have this time with you. If I could, I want to just get into, talking about you and tell the listeners and viewers about yourself and how you got into being an author.
Well, I'm a book editor by trade, so writing has always been in my blood. In fact, as a child, I think I was in maybe third grade. One of my friends and I decided we were going to make our own newspaper. And we even wrote articles for it. I have no recollection of what they were about, and we didn't share it with anyone except maybe our parents. But I've always been writing. As an adult, I've always felt like I would write a book someday, after I retire, because I never have enough hours in the day after working a full-time job. And after reading everybody else's books, it's kind of hard to sit down in front of the computer again and write your own. But when Benny, my doggie Soulmate, passed away in March of 2024, I was broken. My husband, Brad, and I don't have children, so for all intents and purposes, Benny was our son. And I cried nonstop for weeks. Luckily, I hadn't taken on any editing jobs because I couldn't concentrate on work or anything. All I could think about was Benny, missing him, remembering all the fun times we had together, how he'd changed my life, and beating myself up, wondering if I'd made the right decisions for his healthcare. Writing, journaling has always been a form of therapy for me, and I've always been able to communicate my feelings better on paper than I can express them verbally. So I just started jotting down funny stories about Benny and the adventures we had together, just so I wouldn't forget them. And after a while, I realized I have the outline of a book here. So I was fortunate enough that Brad didn't rush me to get back to work. He saw that I needed time to grieve and that writing was helping me emerge from the pool of grief that I was drowning in. So he encouraged me to take the time and write Mommy's Boy. And Susie, I can't tell you how therapeutic that was for me. I still miss Benny every single day, but I truly believe that without Brad's comfort and support, if I'd had to go back to work sooner and I didn't have that ability to channel my grief into something constructive, I wouldn't be where I'm at today in the healing process. And we likely wouldn't be having this conversation because I'd still be plugging away trying to finish the book.
I can relate. I lost, I may have mentioned this, but I had to put down 2 dogs within a year. And that was really hard. And they were both 15 years old. And the second one was a gift from my mother 3 months before she died. She said, I don't want you to be alone when I'm gone. And that dog was really hard for me to get over. I mean, I was a mess. I had a luncheon that day. I had to put him down, and it was happened to be his birthday. And I had a luncheon with a law firm, and I had to call them and tell them I can't make it. And they were all dog lovers, and I got a really beautiful dog card from them, grievance, a sympathy card. And so, there's a lot of us out there that can relate to what you said about that grief and that loss and all those memories, and that they are a member of the family and they are a child. So I totally understand that. What do you think you've learned about yourself through your relationship with your dog?
Oh, a lot. He taught me so much. One of the things, um, he, I've been someone, I'm my own worst critic when it comes to my writing. Um, well, let me go back. I think the biggest thing I've learned is that love is love. And being a dog mom can be just as fun and rewarding and fulfilling as being a mother to human children. Having kids wasn't in the cards for me, but if it had been, I can't imagine loving them more than I do Benny, and now we have Joey and Ziggy. My heart just bursts for love with these boys. And one other thing I do know is that if I did have human children, I most certainly would be a helicopter mom because I'm super protective of my fur babies and hate being away from them. Brad used to joke that Benny and I had separation anxiety for each other, and guilty as charged. Yeah, I totally admit it. We hated spending time apart from each other, and even just for a couple hours. I didn't howl like him and cry, but I still felt it.
Yeah, when we met at that event, you mentioned you were an introvert. As I am, I call myself a social introvert. But did your dog help you become more assertive or more extroverted, or deal with your introversion differently?
Definitely. As I started to say, I've always been my own worst critic when it comes to my writing, which in additionally not having the time significantly held me back in writing a book. But when Benny passed away, the words just flowed out of me. And not to toot my own horn, but what resulted was much better than I ever imagined I could write. And in turn, being an author and going to these events, like where I met you, has forced me to come out of my shell and be more assertive and outgoing than I ever have before. I find it difficult to brag about myself or my accomplishments. I don't even like to talk about myself. But by writing this memoir about my time with Benny, I've had to find the courage and self-confidence to speak to complete strangers at author fairs and bookstores. And honestly, connecting with potential readers and other dog lovers and listening to them talk about their pets and sharing stories with each other, that's my favorite part about attending these events as an author. Would I like Mommy's Boy to become a bestseller and get turned into a movie with Reese Witherspoon starring me? Absolutely. But no matter what happens, I'll always enjoy telling Benny's story and listening to other pet parents tell theirs.
It's interesting, Jennifer, the way you talk about that. Even though he's passed on, he's allowing you to have this new chapter in your life and these new skills and these new areas of growth. I mean, he lives on,
He does.
you know?
He inspires me every day.
I mean, you already talked about love is love, and how that your dog changed your view of love. Did Benny allow you to be more vulnerable?
Like in terms of dating or what?
Yeah, just in general. I mean, an introvert sometimes can, keep things close to their vest, But by having Benny with you, was that a magnet for having conversations with people and, sharing a little bit more when he was around?
Yeah. So he was definitely an icebreaker.
So true.
Yeah. I remember one time, a few months after I adopted Benny, I was still single, and I was dating this guy, and he asked me to a Labor Day party that his friends were hosting. This was going to be the first time I met any of his friends. So the idea of meeting a bunch of new people at a party filled me with anxiety just thinking about it. But when they said I could bring Benny, my anxiety just melted away. And at the party, I had no problem talking to people because Benny was the icebreaker. They would just ask me about him, and I'd start to relax, and the conversation just flowed from there.
I've noticed people who take their dogs like to farmers markets and to holiday gatherings, whether it's a big community picnic or a concert series. I mean, everybody loves to come up and, may I pet your dog? Or what kind of dog is that? Or I had one of those dogs. Or I mean, it really does open up a lot of conversation. I had a relative who had a miniature dachshund, and I can't tell you how many times I sat and watched them have people come up and say, I had a miniature dachshund. Oh, that's my favorite dog. I mean, it's just a really nice icebreaker, and it can be a real magnet.
Definitely.
So, yeah. I talk in I'm a health coach by trade. I was a banker in a previous life, kind of burnt out, but I talk about areas of our life that contribute to our health, and that was part of the gist of this podcast, was to be able to talk to people like you and others about certain areas of their life, and pets bring so much joy, and joy, I think, is something we're sadly in need of a lot more of in this world, and I'm sure you could probably speak a ton about that. But what are your thoughts about joy and pets? I mean, obviously, I know you're a pet enthusiast, so could you convert someone who's a non-pet enthusiast?
I would like to think so. I mean, oh my gosh, pets, particularly dogs, in my experience, have brought so much joy to my life just by being their silly selves. I mean, whether it was Benny dragging me down the sidewalk in pursuit of a squirrel and then trying to climb a tree, chasing after it, Ziggy getting his daily case of the zoomies now, or Joey shaking his stuffed toy like he's a lion trying to kill its prey, or Ziggy licking my hand in appreciation for a belly rub, or Joey and Benny both love to smother my face with kisses for no reason at all. I mean, how can you not be happy and just laugh and be filled with joy around that, So in my mind, pets are the best way to infuse some kind of joy and love into your life. It's an easy fix.
Yeah, it is an easy fix. And there's days, I go, I really need another dog. It's been a long time, but it took a long time to get over that, that grief and sadness. And I don't miss the responsibility, but I also do miss the unconditional love that comes along with that.
And the companionship.
Yeah, absolutely. What's something that your dog understood about you that people might miss or might not know?
So I've struggled with shyness and anxiety most of my life. So like a lot of people, I often put on a happy face when I'm feeling sad or scared or anxious. We do that for the benefit of those around us, either because we don't want to bring them down with us, or we feel like they wouldn't understand, or we don't feel comfortable sharing our feelings with them. But Benny and my childhood dog Arnold before him, and now Joey and Ziggy, they've all had this innate ability to sense whatever I was feeling and offer comfort just by being there, whether it's by snuggling up against me, gazing at me with their big brown eyes, or giving me soothing kisses. So I guess I'd have to say that some people may not realize that I'm shy or anxious, but there's no putting it past a dog. They always know what you're feeling and what you're going through, and they know how to comfort.
Hmm. I would agree with that. When my mom got us the dog as a puppy, it was right after Christmas, so it was cold. It was like, oh gosh, what a hard time to go out and try to, train a dog and get them used to the outdoors. And she had cancer. She was terminal. And so she just had her first chemo treatment. She was in a lazy boy chair, and I brought my dog over to the house to be around her because she was definitely a dog lover. We always had two or three dogs growing up. That puppy went running right up to her and knew she wasn't feeling well. I mean, I think dogs and I've not been exposed to cats in our life, but I've been around them. I've been, I have friends who have them. I don't dislike them. I just have an affinity to dogs.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, and it's just dogs have that instinct. They know.
They do. They're like, I'm here. What can I do to help you? I know you're not feeling well.
Yes, I know. It was just amazing when I saw that because I thought that dog is only like 13 weeks old and knows. That was young. So, did you find, when you were talking about, your shyness, did you find it was easier to talk to people when you had Benny with you?
Totally. Totally. So because shy people are quiet and a little standoffish in social situations, sometimes people think we're stuck up or unfriendly, but we're really just afraid to approach people because we're struggling with our inner insecurities and trying to figure out what to say. In my case, particularly with Benny, because he was so chill, unless he was chasing a squirrel, um, he had this calming effect on me that just put me at ease whenever I was around new people or in social situations that would otherwise have been extremely anxiety inducing for me and would have practically paralyzed me in my ability to speak to people. So yeah, I definitely find it easier to talk to people when I have my dog with me.
Was Benny a part of your dating life?
Yes, yes. Um, Toward the end of my dating life, I should say, um, he, let's see. Um, so I got him in 2014 after I ended a sort of long-term relationship with a guy who was a commitment phobe, and it's just the relationship wasn't going anywhere. So I was at a point in my life where I was like, I am done with dating. I'm done with men. I'm just getting a dog. And that only lasted for a few months because, I deep down, I did want to get married and have children. Um, so I went back on Match.com and, like I said, the clock was ticking. But I remember being on this miserable first date, sitting across from a guy and thinking to myself, I'd rather be at home with Benny. So at that point, I decided I'm going to raise my standards, which if you ask my friends and family, were already pretty high to begin with. But I decided then and there that in order to get a second date with me, the guy had to be worthy of me spending time away from Benny. And spoiler alert, not many passed that test.
That's okay.
It's true. But when I met my husband, Brad, my now husband, Brad, Benny, Brad was just, well, I should say this. Benny really bonded with Brad pretty quickly. He was a little shy at first. Then he was a lot like me. He was very timid and shy. He was. I am what I consider slow to warm, which means I'm shy at first. And then once I get to know somebody a little better, I relax and feel more comfortable around them. And Benny was the same way. He would be a little skeptical at first, but once he got to know somebody, he was like, okay, I trust you. You're my friend. And he would like bring all of his toys over to somebody and say, okay, we're friends now. Let's play. So before I met Brad, I had had my heart broken many times, and I had literally given up hope that I was ever going to find my soulmate and get married. But I knew Benny wanted a daddy as much as I wanted a husband. So when I met Brad, I forced myself to be open to seeing where it went. And if I had allowed my fear of getting hurt again to rule my life, I'd still be single. I know how hard it is, especially for shy, sensitive people like myself, to put ourselves out there in the dating game because we're setting ourselves up for potential heartbreak. But if we don't even try, if we don't make ourselves vulnerable because we're so afraid of getting hurt, then we will for sure end up alone, or at least without a human partner, because with a pet, you're never truly alone.
It's a very good point. And, I think dogs can be very discriminating in terms of if they can spot someone who doesn't like a dog. Dogs, I've noticed that a lot. And in fact, I was in a woman's office and I came back to see her a second time. And she's like, oh, I want you to meet my dog. And she was actually checking me out to see how the dog and I got along together. And that dog jumped in my lap right away. So she knew that I was okay, But, I would imagine just from what you've shared with me so far about Benny and his personality, he was probably a pretty quick study once he did get comfortable with someone that he knew a good person, and that person would be good for you.
I've never had a situation where, like you see on TV or in the movies, where my dog growled at a date, so I dumped him.
That's nice. That's good.
Yeah, for me, it was sort of the opposite. Like I said, when Brad and I were dating, we were long distance, so we'd visit each other every other weekend. And whenever Brad would leave my house or Benny and I would drive away from Brad's place, Benny would get visibly sad. Like he would sit in the back seat and he would pout and he would moan and he'd look out the window with this forlorn look on his face. So I knew he missed Brad just like I did. So the fact that they bonded so deeply just made me love Brad even more. And it bolstered my feeling that he was a good guy and someone that I could trust giving my heart to, which wasn't easy for me because, like I said, I had dated a lot of guys who couldn't commit. And being long distance is even more difficult because you're away from each other for such a long period of time. And you really have to trust that person.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. My dog, I used to give, especially my male, the one who I got from my mom, I used to give him such human qualities, I just thought of him sometimes as a human. He would come in and sigh. If I told him it wasn't time to get up, he'd sigh and he'd drop on the ground like, oh, poor pitiful me.
Melodramatic. Oh.
Very dramatic, melodramatic. And then, when my then boyfriend was in the bathroom, he didn't shut the door completely, and my dog would just bat the door open and go and sit and wait until he was done so that they could go for a walk. And we couldn't even use the word walk. We had to spell it. And so I'm like, this dog, it just knew exactly, could pick up the tone. I couldn't say, kennel. After a while, I had them stay at home, and I had someone come and stay with them instead. It was a lot less um, they were just exhausted. They were emotionally drained from being in a kennel. Like, what did you do to us? You know? But also, I think it was just so much easier. They were in their own environment and things like that. But it's no different than a human having to go into like a hospital or go to camp and they come back pretty wiped out. So I just think we give our pets human qualities. We see so much in them that are so similar to the way we are.
Yeah, Benny was a very sensitive guy, just like I am.
Yeah. What's different or similar about the two dogs you have now, Ziggy and Joey?
Joey.
Yes.
I think there's sort of a combination of Benny. Ziggy is a Bichon, a male, and he just turned 3 in October. He is the cuddle bug, like Benny was. He loves to just snuggle up next to me or lay on my chest, but he's not very affectionate. Like Benny would kiss my face and everything. Ziggy will lick my hand very occasionally, very rarely, I should say. He will lick my face, like in appreciation for a belly rub or something. Joey, on the other hand, doesn't like to cuddle as much, but he will just smother my face with kisses for no reason whatsoever. So they're kind of a little blend of Benny. We don't have a lot of squirrels in our neighborhood because we don't have a lot of mature trees. So Joey hasn't really been exposed to squirrels yet, so I don't know how he's going to react. But he's definitely interested in wildlife. We have some bunnies in the area, and he's interested in them. So I think he's going to be a squirrel chaser if he ever sees them. He's also very sensitive, particularly. I don't really know what it is, but he's going to turn 1 next week. I should say that. And in the past few months, he's developed a lot of fears that Benny never really had fears. He was just sensitive to things. So I'm seeing some similarities and yet some differences. And the biggest similarity is that Joey looks exactly like Benny. He does. And so I should tell the story of how we got them. Every night after Benny passed away, I would look at his photo and say, Benny, give me a sign and let me know when the time is right to adopt another dog. And if somehow you could let me know which dog is the right one to choose, please let me know. And so shortly after Mommy's Boy was published, I had started looking on Pet Finder, and I didn't want a puppy. I wanted to adopt. I feel like older dogs get overlooked in the shelters, so I wanted an older dog. My only real characteristics, I guess you would say, I lean towards smaller dogs, and I wanted it to be white because I named my business after Benny, White Dog Editorial, and so I wanted, to keep the tradition with the spokes dog, if you will. So we found the Bichon on Pet Finder, and we were going up to Fort Wayne to meet him and potentially adopt him. And when we got there, we decided we were going to adopt him. And while we were signing the papers, I saw this puppy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he looks just like Benny. And the lady working there was like, well, do you want to hold him? I'm like, well, yeah. And she put him in my arms. He looked up at me with these big brown eyes, and I swear it was Benny staring back at me. And then he kissed my face, and that was it. And like I said, I didn't want a puppy, but at that point I was like, I want him too. So we have 2 boys.
And that story makes me think that I think our dogs can be reincarnated as other dogs. I mean, that could easily have been Benny reincarnated.
Yeah, I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing was, I never saw Benny as a puppy. So I don't know what he looked like, but I always wished I'd had the opportunity to raise him as a puppy. And I feel like this is the universe's way of giving me that opportunity.
That's great. Oh, and you know what? The fact they're buddies. They have each other.
That was another thing. Like Benny had severe separation anxiety. So I wasn't at a point financially, living on my own outside of Chicago to where I could get a second dog. And I worked in the city and lived in the suburbs, and it was just too much at the time. And he was very comfortable being an only child. Like, I don't think, even when we were around my sister's dogs, like, he didn't like sharing me. So I don't know that he would have liked a sibling. But I always thought, maybe that would help him with his separation anxiety. So when we decided to get another dog, I'm like, well, this time I'd like to get two, just so they have that companionship and aren't so reliant on me, because I do work from home and I'm with them all the time. And they still, even though they have each other when we go away, they're still
a mess.
Still miss me. Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good they miss you. I dog sat recently, or actually late last fall. It's the first time I've dog sat. And it was so much fun. And I loved taking walks. And I said, that dog is not going to know what hit her, because I was going to take her out. I had a friend who had a 2-year-old golden. She was an older golden. I'm still finding hair, but needless to say, she had a good gig for the 5 days she was with me. And when her parents, my brother and sister-in-law, came to pick her up, I was so hoping that dog would feel mad that they left her, that she'd want to stay with me. And that didn't happen. She was like, really? You are such a traitor. You had such a good gig going with me. You can sleep on my bed. You have free reign of my house, But no such luck. And but it did, fix for me that, oh yeah, this is what I have missed. And I was worried about that separation anxiety too, when I would leave. So I was getting a little more cautious. Oh, I can't be gone too long. I don't want to be gone in case, one, the house is a wreck or the dog's a wreck or both. So those are things that I hadn't dealt with in a while. So it's wonderful. But more places, I have to say this, more places now are accepting of having dogs, whether it's a hotel, or it's a restaurant or Lowe's or different places that you can take dogs that you couldn't when I had my dogs.
Yes, exactly. Like when I had Arnold growing up, we couldn't take him anywhere. There were a few pet friendly hotels. I remember one time, this was in the early 90s, and we went to the Mall of America shortly after it had opened. And we had a hotel not far from the mall. And we brought Arnold because he did not do well at a kennel. I think we boarded him one time and he was a mess. So we took him with us, and I don't know what we were thinking. We had his crate. And we left him in the hotel room all day while we were at the mall. It was probably like 6 hours. For him, it probably seemed like 6 days. But when we got back, we had a message flashing on the phone, and it was the front desk saying we needed to leave because our dog barked all day and disrupted. It was during the day, so it wasn't like people were trying to sleep or anything, but yeah, we got kicked out of the hotel. So now, whenever we travel, we try to get Airbnbs that are dog friendly and aren't attached. They're like single family homes. So we know that Benny, when we had him, or Joey and Ziggy now, they're going to bark while we're gone. And we, it's just a fact of life. So hopefully they're not bothering anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you live and learn, but I do like the fact that things are a lot more social for dog owners and dogs, and I think my dog would have been better, my male would have been better socialized had I had those experiences with him. But we have a trail, here in Indiana that I loved walking on, but he would have just been a mess. He would have been gravitating to every person and probably causing accidents and then stubborn. He liked to go one direction, so to have him turn around was not something in his mindset. So,
what kind of dog was he?
I had two black labs.
Yeah, so not as easy to turn around or.
No. And I would say, if I were to have a dog, I wouldn't have a big dog because it was so much harder as they got sick. And it was hard to lift them. It was hard to take them to the vet. I just, I'd like to travel with them, whether in the car or on a plane. And so, it'd have to be a smaller dog now. And it's amazing how many people on plane rides are bringing their dogs in their carriers. I mean, one time I even asked the stewardess, I said, how many dogs are on this flight? And she said 12.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
It's what you do with your loved ones. You bring them with you. So, yeah. So Jen, what is your SOS? For someone who's listening to this or watching, we talked about joy and the joy of pets. What would you tell them, whether it's, about your dog, about, the joy or overcoming some of that anxiety? What would you say to them?
Well, obviously, I think the best thing anyone can do for themselves is adopt a pet. I mean, it certainly will make a difference in their lives and the animal's life. But I know not everyone can do that for a variety of reasons. So specifically for people who are grieving the loss of a loved one, I would encourage you to find a creative outlet to help channel that grief into something positive. Like, you don't have to write a book like I did. But if you like to write, jot down some memories of your loved one. Or maybe you like painting or drawing or knitting, photography, gardening, woodworking, quilting, writing poetry, whatever. My friend Janine is a musician, and she wrote a song for her dog who passed away last summer. Yeah, she also wrote one for Benny, and hopefully I'll be able to share that soon.
It's not called Benny and the Jets, is it?
No, Benny and the Jens.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm kidding. I used to sing that to him whenever that song would come on. I would change the wording.
That's a hoot. So is there anything else you want to share that we didn't talk about?
I guess back to people who are grieving the loss of a loved one, I encourage them to find a support group. When Benny passed away, I desperately needed to talk about him and what I was feeling, but I didn't want to burden my family and friends with it. So the only person I really talked to was Brad. And honestly, after a few weeks, people stopped asking me how I was doing. So I found an online pet grief support group through Michigan State University. And even when I didn't speak up during the meetings, there was something about that communal grief, just knowing that other people were going through the same thing and understood what I was feeling and could empathize. That was so comforting to me. It made me feel seen and heard and understood in ways that even my closest family and friends who weren't experiencing it with me couldn't relate to. So find that community that works for you, because it really does help.
That's great advice. Where can people find your book?
My book is Mommy's Boy, How My Doggie Soulmate's Love Rescued Me. It's available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. And if you like to support indie bookstores, it's through bookshop.org. And if they were to want a signed copy, you can get it through my website, which is whitedoggeditorial.com.
Great. That's wonderful. I know people will want to read about the lovely Benny and how much joy that he brought to you, and I'm sure other people. Jen, it has been so nice having you today on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I truly believe we were meant to meet and talk about your dog and dogs, really, all your dogs, and the love and the joy, and also the grief that comes along with that joy, you know. And so I'm so grateful for you to be on today, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Susie. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen and help me share Benny's story and the many ways that dogs can enrich our lives. I mean, we just don't get enough time with them, but so we have to go into it knowing that our time with them is limited and just enjoy every minute we have with them.
Enjoy that unconditional love, and
yes,
that is such a gift.
It truly is.
Well, I do hope our paths cross again.
I do too.
Thank you.
This has been. Thank you.
Well, friends, sadly, that's all the time we have today. Thank you for listening or watching SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. And thank you, Jen, for joining me today. This episode was so enjoyable. It was just pure joy as we talked about our dogs and who are members of our family and the unconditional love they provide us with. It also goes hand in hand with talking about grief and losing them and how difficult it is to work through the grieving process. And so I hope that you benefited from watching and listening to this episode. And you can support this episode and this podcast by liking, sharing, and subscribing. You can send me a review or a question you might have, and that question might be asked in a future episode. You can follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and if you'd like to be added to an email newsletter, I'd be happy to add you to my email newsletter. I'm so happy to have you on this journey with me as we explore everything that brings us joy and everything that contributes to our health. So until next time, take care, and I hope our paths cross again.